You wouldn't believe the amount of times I've tried to make this video. The first time my camera overheated. The second time I upended a whole thing of salt into the mixture. They still got eaten. I had to scoop it out. Anybody who tells you that making protein balls is too much of a hassle needs to try this, so you need to share it with them. It ticks all the boxes. It's got roughly about 10 grams of protein in it. They're very easy to make. It requires minimal washing up. There's no machines involved apart from a microwave, but none of the awkward machines to chop up dates or dried fruit. I hate working with them. They also have a little bit of crunch, but most importantly, they don't look like sheep's droppings. Now, the reason I was so desperate to find a recipe for some protein balls was simply because anytime you go into the shop, you are bombarded with such a selection of delicious sounding protein bars, and you think, well, sure, maybe they're worth €3 or €3.40 or €5, whatever they are at the moment. But then you bite into them and you think, wow, how have they managed to make it so sickly sweet? And that's what I love about these. There is some honey in them. You can switch that out from maple syrup if you're plant-based, but I just think they're amazing. So, first up, the oats. So I haven't weighed these out into little bowls and little dishes because that's just making washing up. What I'm going to use is this cup. Now, anybody who's been to Kaale over the past 5 years will know where this came from. It wasn't me, it was Will. So we are going to scoop out 2 of said cups into our mixing bowl. Next, the protein powder. Now, this is where you're going to have to splash out because there isn't as much protein in these as, say, your protein smoothie or your protein drink. You're only getting about 10 grams, so you might as well make it a good quality one. Now, unfortunately, this vanilla flavour is not good. It's too sweet. It goes against everything I believe in. The chocolate one is amazing, but I'm looking for a whey isolate, which means it's refined enough so that the lactose and any kind of fats are removed from it and you're left with just a high quality protein. Again, my cup. I'm going to go in there and take out 1 nice cup of protein powder. This is about the size of a US cup size, in case you actually wanted to use regular measuring devices. So there we have our oats and our protein powder. The next up is the nuts. Now, I'm just using Aldi's mixed nuts. I think they're great. So about half a cup of the mixed nuts, and I'm going to go ahead and chop them up into little crunchy pieces. There we have it, into the bowl. Next up, your dried fruits. Now, I'm going for dates and dried cranberries here because, again, it's just what I like. So we're going to fill up the cup with the dried fruit. Again, all from Aldi. And then we're going to chop that up. And this is the bit where the machine, I don't know, maybe you prefer having the machine, but I'm happy just to chop them up. Some people use scissors, which is quite smart, but again, more washing up. Just keep an eye that you don't chop off your fingers, because that would be sad. Not too fussy, they are nice and chunky still, but they're all going to get mixed up anyway, so I think they're fine like that. But that is our dried fruit and dry mix, and then I'm going to add in some chia seeds. simply because I like to have things to pick out of my teeth all day. So we'll go for 2 tablespoons in there. Then I'm going to give that a mix up and just make sure it's all mixed together and the dried fruit gets separated. Next up is some oat milk. Make sure and give that a shake. There's a lot of sediment that builds up in the bottom if you don't. Now we are just going to use half a cup of this. I'm using oat milk because I can't handle cow. You can use whatever milk you like. And this is just to give the mixture a bit of wetness, okay? It's not going to obviously start combining it already because that's what the goo is for. That's just to start plumping up the mixture so it's easier to mix up later on. Next up, the goo. What we're going to do is we are going to get the honey first, and we're going to put 3 tablespoons of honey into my cup. Now obviously if you're fussy you can go and wash your spoons, but I'm probably not going to do that. Next up, we've got 2 tablespoons of crunchy or not peanut butter. Nice big tablespoons. Now you don't need to mix it because you're going to put that into the microwave for a very short 30-second blast. Not so much that the honey starts to bubble over because then it gets too hot and it's going to be really hard to manage after that. So, to be honest, it only needs about 20 seconds, just so that the honey is really runny, and then you can give it a stir in the cup to combine the honey and the peanut butter, okay? And then, very simply, you're just going to pour that in there into your dry mixture. Scoop it all out. And then, this is probably the hardest part. You have to really get in there to get it mixed because it's quite sticky and it's quite tough to keep going. And you'll end up with this kind of sort of sticky, sort of crumbly mixture. But the magic is in the hands, okay? So again, we're going to get the cup. You can rinse it out if you want, but I'm going to fill that with warm water, not boiling water, just enough to coat your hands with. And then your tablespoon again, and you're going to spoon out portions of that. Now, you can weigh it out. I have done in the past, but for the sake of time, today I just don't have that time. So I'm gonna eyeball it, ball. But you're looking for a ball around that size. It's smaller than a golf ball, but it's about 2 bite sizes. The idea with your hands is that it kind of makes it nice and slimy so that it is really easy to roll up in your hands. Now you can see here, you kind of have to squeeze it to make sure it's a nice firm ball. While I'm doing this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I think these are useful. So obviously we've all got some protein requirements that we want to hit throughout the day, okay? Now depending on what your sport is, that could be anywhere between 1.5 grams per kilo of your body weight to 2.2, okay? Sometimes that's kind of hard to hit. There's only so much chicken and tuna that you can eat. So these can just be a handy little snack to get your protein intake topped up throughout the day. The beauty of them is, with that protein and with the omega-3s from your chia seeds and with the fats from your peanut butter and the naturally occurring sugars from the honey and the dried fruit, they are a lovely balanced snack. Contrary to what we want when we're in training, where we want a nice fast energy release, during sort of your periods of rest or your periods of recovery, you might be looking more for a gradual energy release so that your body isn't riding this like roller coaster of blood sugar. That is required in certain circumstances, but not all the time. Sometimes your body just needs a break from all the sugar that you might be throwing at it, even if you're not an athlete, which is why these things come in so handy. What I will say though is that they are a protein ball. Yes, they do contain some carbohydrates, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail later on, but they are a protein ball. They are not an energy ball. So please don't think these are the types of food, unless you are an ultra endurance athlete, don't think that these are the types of foods that you should be having during exercise. So they should be predominantly used for recovery, not so much for fueling. Now, I have reached the end of the ball, or the end of the bowl, you are not going to be a ball. So I'm going to give my hands and the cup a little rinse, and then I'm going to show you the magic. This is my favourite part. Get your chocolate, 85%. 2 bars, which I think works out at 50 grams, and break it up into your cup. Nice and small. And then we are going to blast that in the microwave for 20-second blasts. And sometimes when you think it needs another blast, what it actually just needs is a quick stir, and the heat from the chocolate will melt the rest of it. Wonderful, wonderful, look at that. Then you get your plate and you're going to put a sheet of baking parchment on top of that. I actually like to coat it with some butter just to prevent these guys from sticking to it, because they are pretty sticky. So you knob butter and just run that along. And then you get your cup, you get your balls, and you dunk them. Just so that they're most of the half of the top covered, sort of to the tips of your fingers, because I know that that exact amount will do the amount of balls that I've got here. And then this is what you're left with. Look at those little shiny, oh, they just look so decadent. Now I'm going to put them in the fridge for about 3 hours, and they kind of need that so that they're nice and firm and kind of crunchy at the same time while they're in there. Roughly, now this is all rough because as you can see I didn't weigh them out, but they are about 150 calories. They contain roughly 10 grams of protein, 15 grams of carbohydrate, and about 4 or 5 grams of fat, okay? So like I said, they are not an energy ball. They are a protein-based snack. So you wouldn't really want to be using them during training unless, like I said, you're doing an ultra endurance type event. I see this all the time where people use protein-based snacks on their bike rides, and then they wonder why they're lacking in energy towards the end of the ride. Protein during endurance exercise is not the requirement. It's carbohydrate. Your body is burning through all your glycogen stores. Your blood sugar needs stabilizing, and the only way of doing that is with carbohydrate. So, protein, recovery, carbs, energy. And apart from this rather expensive tub of protein powder, I reckon somebody should do this. Somebody should work out exactly how much these are per ball. I would be able to do it, but I just like eating them. But see what you think. try them out. It has taken me so much longer to make this video than it usually does for me to make the actual balls. I forgot one thing. They're still wet enough to do this. Salt. This wasn't on my original recipe, but a very good friend of mine said that if you sprinkle them over with salt, it's, well, it makes them look pretty good. Plus, it'll just give you that nice little bit of electrolytes. But just be careful. The last time I used one of these, well, the twisty top came off and it went everywhere. So, I'm glad I remembered that. Let me know how you get on, if you make them, if you make any changes, what your preferences are, and let me know what you'd like to see more or less of. I am absolutely committed to doing this. I am really enjoying it. So hopefully you are too. As you know, I'm a performance nutritionist. I work one-to-one with athletes on their target races, on their body composition goals, basically everything that encompasses an athlete's life. So get in touch, use the links below, and we can have a chat.